Check one, 2, 3. Hey everybody, it's Michael Helms, also known as Michael the Sound Guy, and this is the Location Sound Podcast. You know, each episode we talk with location sound mixers, boom ops, and other industry pros about the various aspects of recording sound on location, whether it's for feature and independent films, TV commercials, interviews, any time where dialogue from actors is recorded. I started my career in the recording studios in New York City with some of the big artists back in the day, and later on projects for networks like HBO, Sci-Fi Channel, and the Cartoon Network. As time went by, I got out of the studio and began working in production sound. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out, thanks for joining us. My guest today is a freelance sound mixer who has worked on commercials, documentaries, reality, and narrative. He's based out of Boston, Massachusetts. Please welcome Jim Keaney.
Hey, Michael. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you on the show.
Yeah, glad to be here. I'm a big fan of this podcast. I listen to it all the time.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, it's a little surreal, actually. I feel like I'm talking to a celebrity right now.
Oh, no celebrities here.
In our world, you're a celebrity.
Well, I appreciate it. Well, we'll start off with our top question. When you're working as a production sound mixer on set, tell us what's in your audio bag. So just kind of give us a rundown of all your gear and preferred mics and all the goodies.
All right, I got a ton of gear. I basically am at the point where I have two bags going on right now. One is the smaller bag is like a K-Tech Stingray Junior. It's got a Sound Devices 633 with a pair of Lectrosonics SRc receivers in it. I got a pair of the newer wideband SMDWBs, I think, whatever the double battery ones are, and then I have a pair of the single batteries. And then I've got some older SRBs as well with some SMQVs. The small bag I usually leave wired for 4 channels and then a boom. Use the Audio Root BDS, which is like the DHBG something. It's got 2 switches on it. It's got the eSmart batteries. The larger bag is kind of like very similar to it. Instead of the 633, it's a 688. And I have a SL6 accessory on there, which is like it holds 3 slot receivers basically. And you can do like scanning through the 688 with it, which is nice. And I also have a CL6 on that as well, which gives you the bigger row of faders for channels like 7 through 12. And then when I go to the 688 bag, I'll just kind of hot swap receivers in and out of there from the smaller bag if I need to.
And timecode, what do you like for timecode?
Timecode, I really like the Betso TCX-2s. They are pretty small and light, and they run on single AA. What I like the most about them is that they have a display so you can actually see what's going on, and you don't have to use like an app or anything like that. That's kind of what sold me on going that route.
And shotgun mics, what do you prefer?
I have a 416. And then I also have the CMIT 5U, the Sanken CS3e, which I like. I like that for outdoors. I feel like it's good for like high noise environments. Like if you're doing like press conference-y kind of stuff where you're just kind of run and gun, it's really directional and I feel like it rejects really well. But the CMIT's great too because it's got a wider pattern, I feel like, so it's a little more forgiving if you're booming multiple people with that. And it just sounds awesome. So that's it for shotguns. And then I have some like cardioid mics as well that I like to use for indoors, like a pair of Schoeps 641s. And then my most recent purchase was Sennheiser MKH-50, which is kind of like the interview mic that everyone seems to like. And I kept seeing it on like narrative sets. And so I got to hear it more and more. And I was like, yeah, I should probably get one of these. It almost sounds kind of like more broadcasty or something. It's got like, it's a little like souped up, but it sounds great. It almost sounds like a podcast kind of quality microphone if you can get close. And for like sit down interviews, talking heads, I feel like it's just like, I don't know. Even the Schoeps 641 is great for that too, but there's something about the 50, it's just like, I don't know, it just sounds like it's already compressed and like processed and stuff. It sounds really like finished.
Okay. What kind of lav mics do you use usually?
Labs, I usually use either the COS 11s are like my first choice typically. But I do own like a few different colors of the B6s as well because I like to do the little buttonhole trick. I do a lot of like corporate and talking heads and docs and stuff like that. So I feel like if you ever get like a button-down shirt kind of deal, I love to just do like where you conceal it right behind the like their second button down. And the B6s are good for that most of the time. Sometimes they really just don't handle wind well, or plosives sometimes, so that can like kill you sometimes. But I like them as far as hideability. They're really good, and the wire is super thin. So.
And what's your preferred headphones?
Headphones, I've been rocking the 7506s forever. I started out in radio, so that was where I first met the 7506s, and everyone in that world was using them, so I bought a pair. And they're cheap, they're like $100, and they sound pretty good. And so I've been sticking with those for a while. I just recently, in like the last year, bought a pair of the remote audio, the high noise ones, like those giant like helicopter pilot HN7506s, I think they're called. I've actually been just using those like all the time now because I just got used to them. I hear some people don't like them because they're heavy and they're sweaty, but I don't know. I just like the isolation. Like once you have that amount of isolation, it's hard to go back to like regular headphones because they really do isolate. Like I feel like that's probably how I'm going to die, is like I'm going to get hit by a truck or something because like you're not going to hear it coming. Like it's crazy how much they isolate. It's essentially like, I think that they're actually made for pilots because it says pilot like etched into the cups on the sides. So
that's cool. Yeah, no, I think we all, reach up sometimes and we'll push the headphones in real tight, in a noisy environment, and just to try to get a little bit more isolation. But yeah, I've been thinking about getting some of those too because I love me some good quiet monitoring.
Yeah, they're, especially with wind too. That was the thing I noticed, because sometimes you'll get tricked by wind noise. You think it's coming in on the mic and it's not. It's actually coming into your ears. I've definitely had shoots where I was sweating, being like, oh my God, this sounds so windy right now, but I can't do anything about it. And then I listen back to it and I'm like, oh, it's fine. It was just wind blasting through the headphones. So they also sell, they're kind of pricey. I think they're like $400 and something, but they're great. And then they make another one, and I bought these and I like haven't really even used them yet, but they make one with like a little headset mic built into it. So for talkback, which would be good if you do like cart work and stuff like that.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, I guess you worked on a docu-TV series, My Last Days, and it looked really very moving. So tell us a little bit about that project.
Yeah, My Last Days, that's a show. I think it aired on the CW network, and I just did that one episode, and it's a show about, it's kind of a dark show because it's sort of about people who have like terminal illnesses. And so the guy we were following was this really nice guy who, I guess he used to work as like a bouncer at a club for most of his life. And he was apparently got in like so many fights that he had so much trauma to his head or something like that, that it got to a point where he was told by the doctor allegedly that it's a matter of time kind of thing. And so we followed him around, and he was actually doing a lot of good stuff for his town. He put together this like, he was like collecting bikes and reworking them and then donating them to kids who didn't have bikes. So it was a nice story. He was a nice guy.
Yeah, it looked like you guys did sit-down interviews. There was a public award ceremony, and you had a podium mic and B-roll shots with Nat sound. I was watching the little clip on your website. So, I mean, were there any particular technical challenges on set when you were recording that thing?
It's funny. I'm glad you mentioned that because I kind of forgot about the details of the shoot, but yeah, so they shot a few different times. They came to town a couple different times. They're an out-of-state production company. They shot it like the first time with the pair of cameras. I think they were like Alexas, like an Alexa and an Amira. And then the next time they came back with 3 cameras. And this is just like a verite style show. Like we're just following this guy around. And at one point they were like we walked up to 2 people that he was talking to, and I had to boom it. And of course they're like shooting it literally every way. Like they're almost in each other's shots at this point, the 3 camera guys. So I'm just trying to stay up with at least one of them. So if I'm in, he's in too. But yeah, it was a little weird. I feel like at some point for reality style shows, like there can be too many cameras, because it's just like no one can get a shot because everyone's in someone else's shot. And I remember booming this woman he was talking to at some point, and the camera guy was shooting from like in the garage, and he was shooting super wide, and he's like looking at me like, bring the boom up. He's giving me this like, thumbs up or whatever. And I'm just like, no, I'm just shaking my head like I can't, like you're not gonna be able to hear. So what's it worth? So there was that. And then, yeah, we did this awards thing, sort of like an awards ceremony. They gave him an award at the town hall, but in typical reality fashion for things like this, nobody knew what was going to unfold or what order things were going to happen in. So I think I just put I taped like a lav mic to a couple of the podium mics, but I didn't know there was like literally like 3 or 4 podiums in this room. I'm like, I don't know where he's going to go. And so the whole time I'm asking around, being like, hey, where do you think this guy will land? And everyone's just, even the people working there, just shrugging, like, I don't know. So I had him mic'd up with a lav, I believe. And then I think I just put a couple lavs on the other podiums because I think it was like some city official who was giving him the award. And sure enough, I picked the wrong podium. I swear there was like 4 podiums and I picked like 3. And it was like, of course, the one I didn't grab. And luckily, the guy who was sitting next to the person who was about to start speaking totally noticed it. And he went over and I saw him pull my lav off the adjacent podium and he moved it for me. And I just gave him the biggest thank you ever at the end. I was like, oh man, you saved me. Because all I could do at that point was, boom a speaker in the room, which would have sounded horrible. So it all worked out. But yeah, other than that, it was, pretty typical, docuseries, docu-follow kind of deal.
Yeah, how often does that happen where someone moves a mic for you and it's a good thing?
Yeah, exactly, right? I know. Usually that would be the worst thing ever, but no, he totally caught it. He saw it was about to unfold and he hooked me up big time.
Nice. All right, I saw another one on your website, Jeff Ross roasts cops. So can you tell us about that? Because he's raw, right?
Yeah, that was an interesting one. They shot this special with Jeff Ross, the comedian. So his whole deal is he's like the roast master guy that's his whole shtick, is that he makes fun of everybody. And he was a nice guy to work with. And we basically did a bunch of ride-alongs for, I think it was 3 or 4 days in a row with the Boston Police Department. But it was weird when we started this shoot because, again, it's sometimes it's amazing to me that a shoot of this size will be so seemingly unorganized. They're just winging it, really. And I mean, even, the line producer or the showrunner, whoever I was talking to, they told us that in the beginning. They were like, we don't really know what's going to happen. We're just going in there and seeing. But apparently there was this big controversy when he got to the Boston police station where the police department had apparently heard some negative things about him in regards to police. I think someone said they saw him at some anti-police, is that even a thing? Anti-police rally? Some kind of rally where, people were, I don't know, pissed off at the cops for some reason. And he was there, and he actually used that footage in his show, but it wasn't really to support that. It was just to show that exists, I guess. But man, I thought the shoot wasn't going to happen when it first started because he was just they didn't want to talk to him. They would not play along. And the first thing they tried to do is they put him in a room with probably 30 or 40 officers, roll call before they go out to do their various assignments. And he's trying to do his little shtick. He's got these police specific jokes lined up, and they're just bombing left and right like crickets. And again, if you watch the special, they put it in there. They're not trying to hide the fact that it wasn't working, and they totally call it out. So it all worked out. By the end, a lot of them seemed to warm up to him. They did I think they did a comedy stand-up, an actual stand-up performance for the police at a comedy club, but I wasn't around for that. I don't know who they used to capture that, but that's the only part of that special I didn't have anything to do with. But yeah, all the verite stuff was us just in a follow van, listening via IFBs. And I think with a lot of the car work, I just did lavs on everybody, and I might have done a couple plant mics. I think I just planted a lav in the visors maybe as well. And then I probably did one. I think Jeff was sitting in the back seat for most of it. So I just hid one behind the headrest of the driver. So it was real close. But I don't know what they ended up using, but sounded pretty good. So I guess they got what they needed. Yeah.
Do you have any techniques? I know on your YouTube channel, you have some cool videos on miking a car and all that.
Yeah, I did a YouTube video recently about 5 different ways to mic up cars. And I put it on YouTube. I'm not really sure what I'm doing with my YouTube channel because it turns out that it's a whole lot of work to make those videos. I think it's cool to kind of just kind of geek out on it and share that stuff. And, and people seem to really like that one. Actually, that I had 100 followers before that video. And then after that video, I think I'm almost up around 500. So people seem to actually share it and stuff, which was pretty crazy. But as far as techniques, if you watch the video, yeah, it's just showing you a handful of ways. When I worked on some narrative stuff, we would try to put a MKH-50 in between the seats, like kind of coming up from the console, and we would do some kind of like a dinkum arm, some kind of bendy mount like that. And then there's a few different options for the visor. One of them was the Sanken makes a Cub microphone, which is like I guess it's not officially like an Omni. It's like a sort of a hybrid Omni hemispherical pattern, pickup pattern, something like that, where it seems Omni-ish, but there is like a point on the mic that's just a little more present than the rest of the mic. So, and that one sounded pretty good. And then I bought a pair of, this is kind of what sparked me to do these tests. A pair of, Peter Eng makes this little mic called the Omni Goose, and it's like a 6-inch podium mic, kind of like a micro flex, like Shure microphone you'd see on a podium. And he cuts it into like a 6-inch section, and the capsule is a Omni, and it plugs directly into Lectrosonics. It's wired for TA5. So I put a pair of those in the visors, and those actually sounded really good. I think I forget what I ended up thinking was the best, but I want to say it was the Omni Goose. And then I just did like labs as well, and just kind of gave some tips on where to place it, with keeping the seatbelt placement in mind and stuff like that. So if anyone listening wants to check it out, youtube.com. I forget what the / is, but just search Hub Location Sound. That's my company name, so that's what it's under.
Okay. Yeah, you had another good one about talking about what's in your audio bag. So that was pretty cool too. I liked how you you broke it all down and then showed your Velcro attachments and everything with your I guess was it 633 or was it your? Yeah,
thanks. That's the smaller bag. So yeah, if you look at that bag, that's essentially what my big bag looks like, because I just use the same like line of bags. Like I think it's the K-Tech Stingray large for the bigger one. But yeah, and what I did with that one is sort of custom. I made these like D-sub, like the DB25 pin connectors, because if you use the SL6, that's how they're set up. So you have to use the back plates that match those on your receivers. But if you're jumping to like a 633 like I decided to just make connectors wired into the 633. That way you can hot swap them very quickly. You can just pull one out and go into the other bag. So, but yeah, there's all kinds of weird little modifications. I love to like tinker and try to make things smaller and smarter and faster.
Yeah, I liked how you had that Velcro patch on the back and then everything just Velcroed to the mixer itself versus, a lot of times we're splitting them up into separate pockets and things like that. Oh yeah,
with that, I don't know if I ever explained that in the video. All that really is if you ever see like lawn signs for politicians and stuff, they're made out of like that plastic kind of sheet of plastic. It's called Coroplast. And so yeah, I just bought a sheet of that off I don't know, eBay or Amazon or something, and just cut it to fit the exact kind of footprint of the top of the 633, and then I just lined it with Velcro. And I find that easier, and to be honest, it's lighter. Like I know there's people that make these really cool dashboards and stuff, but they just take up more space and they add more weight to the bag. So Velcro's fine for me. Like they stay pretty snug in there. So I don't think I need a legit dashboard. Plus I'm always trying to keep the bag as light as possible because I keep adding stuff to it.
Yeah. So one of our listeners had asked if you reset your mixer on every new project, and if you also, do you have user presets that you've created?
I was just thinking about this the other day because I do have user presets because some jobs I do, over and over again for the same clients, and so you kind of know what it's going to be. But what's funny is I feel like I just kind of forget sometimes that I have those presets and I just pick it up from wherever I left off. But that can burn you sometimes though too, because I definitely, there's a gig I was on where worked with this client, and then the next day I worked with the same client, but it was a different kind of shoot. And the producer's like yelling from across the property, like, "I'm hearing an echo. What's this echo?" I'm like, I'm listening to my bag. I'm like, "I don't hear an echo. What's this guy talking about?" He's like, "Yeah, there's an echo." And I'm like, "It's weird because we just used the same exact camera and everything yesterday. Like, there shouldn't be any." So I think I looked at my input delays to see if something got magically turned on, which I never touch input delays, and didn't see anything. Sure enough, I had left like an output delay that I had put on for the job for the day before that. And so he was right. But what's funny is I couldn't hear an echo, and the only reason he was noticing it was because he was standing next to talent who had a lav on. So when he talked to them, it was more noticeable to him. But me being far away, I'm like, "No, they sound great. I don't know what your problem is, man. What's going on here?" So yeah, presets are cool. No, I'm not like super stringent about that. Like I probably should just make a good handful of ones that I definitely have a good, you know what I do is I do have a starting preset, because there have been times where I've turned the mixer on and it's just like defaulted back to factory settings for whatever reason. Like it's some, I don't know, some hocus pocus going on with something. And if that ever happens, like, you know, when you're not expecting it and you need to roll fast, it's nice to have at least like a starting point where you can say, hey, tell channel 1 that it's supposed to have phantom power on it, and tell, you know, the other channels that they're line level or whatever, however you have it set up. So yeah, I do think it's useful.
All right. Well, there was another sci-fi drama film you worked on called Ascendance Horizon, and I was watching a little bit of that preview on your website as well. That looked kind of interesting. It's
this guy that I do a lot of corporate work for, who had sort of his like passion project indie film, and I think he broke it up into like series. So I think it's in 4 parts. So I worked on the 4th one. Yeah, it was just like one-man banding, narrative, boom and bag. Just a lot of like, you know, 2 people talking to each other kind of dialogue. Nothing too crazy about it, to be honest. But yeah, we got to shoot up in, I think it was Vermont a couple times. And it was really, you know, really nice up there. And they hooked us up with, you know, a good place to stay and all that. So it was kind of fun.
Any particular challenges on that one?
You know, one thing that was sort of challenging about that was we're up in Vermont and we're out in this field and it was super just windy. So, you know, I had like a full-on blimp going. But yeah, just trying to get like usable lavs with all the wind and stuff, it could be tough. Like today I was out on a boat, you know, there's only so much wind you can blast into a lav before it's like, oh, this isn't going to work. LMC makes these like furry, I think they're called furry 4S's or something like that, but it looks like almost like the stock RM11 that comes with COS 11s, but then one side's just like fur. Only downside of those that I could say is that the back is rubber, that's where you'd put your adhesive. But because it's like one whole side of it's rubber, I feel like if you have to turn it around so it's facing into their body, the rubber side's on the outside, and it just really kind of makes it sound a little too dull in my opinion. I wrote them an email and asked them if they could like figure out a way to like cut a little half moon, like right where the grill is, and kind of like wrap the furry around it. And they said they would work on it. So who knows if they really will. But those are the best I've found, and they're the easiest to put on people quickly. The other ones I like are Bumblebee makes, I forget what they're called, but it's just like this little poof of fur, and it's got a little hole in it with like 2 little strings sticking out, and you can jam a COS 11 in there, but they're just not as easy to mount, because then you just have like this giant lollipop and you're like, I need to like tape it to something, but then it ends up smushing all the fur on one side against either the body or the clothing or whatever. So I use those when I'm like out of ideas. That's when I'm like, all right, let's try this thing.
Well, you know, speaking of expendables, do you have any particular ones that you like the best?
Lately, I've been getting into this Bumblebee Industries made this new set of lav concealers, and I think they're just called lav concealer. And they make them for a few different mics. I use the COS 11 ones, and I think they make them for the DPAs as well, and maybe like one of the Sennheiser mics. Again, it's sort of derivative of like the RM11, but it's a little more contoured. The rubber's a little softer and lighter. And then they put this little, I thought it was kind of like a weird gimmick at first, but they put this little like, it's like the little paper clip trick where I don't know if you ever tried this, where you need to get clothing off of the mic, so you like tape a little piece of a paper clip and you make like a little bridge, like a little arc over the grill of the mic. But they built that into their mount so you can add it or remove it if you want. And I always just leave them in because it's pretty low profile even with that thing on there. And I'd say like for most like typical costumes like t-shirts and hoodies and blouses and whatever, they work like 99% of the time. So lately that's been my jam. And those and the furries are like my 2 most used mounting, like concealer mounts. And then after that, I do like the Ursa mini mounts. They're like these hard, I think they're plastic, some kind of hard plastic. They really form to like the COS 11 body, so they're not very big. So if you ever do like a t-shirt and it's a tight shirt where you can't see the cable, so you go over their shoulder, I like it because you can run it like horizontally, like right in the rim of the collar. And it's small enough where it doesn't like sag down too much. It doesn't add too much weight. So those are my main ones. Otherwise, straps I use mostly the Ursa straps. I think I have one of the Viviana straps. I can't really see much of a difference between the 2 of those companies. I see them like fighting online a lot, and I don't know. I don't really have a preference. I think they're both decent. They're both good. They both work. So
Yeah, I've used the Ursa a lot, and I like those. And I haven't tried Viviana, but I'm open to try them. Like you said, they seem very similar.
Yeah, as far as I could tell, I don't see a big difference. And actually, yeah, that's the other thing. Now that you mentioned Ursa again, I like their what do they make? It's like a moleskin, but I forget what it's called. It's just like strips or something. I forget. Ursa. It looks like moleskin, and it comes in like little pre-cut strips. I think you can get bigger rolls of it too from them, but I do the pre-cut ones, and it comes in like beige, black, white, and brown. And I just like it because you can get it in like white. You know, before that I was mostly using like Dr. Scholl's moleskin for that kind of application. But it's nice that like white exists. So if you're actually on a white dress shirt, you can get away with so much more. Like you can almost expose the mic. You can just barely even see that it's there. Yeah, those are definitely in my little box of tricks.
Any particular stickies or adhesives you like?
Oh, yes. I'm glad you said that because like that's a whole like half of the case is dedicated to stickies. Yeah, my favorite as far as adhesives go, I'm torn about these because they're so good, but they're kind of expensive for like how much they give you. Rycoat makes these stickies called Rycoat Advanced Stickies, and they come in like circles and squares. And I get the squares because they fit pretty much perfectly on the back of those Bumblebee concealers. So they're really fast to use. And what they are is like if you look at it, it almost looks like less than a millimeter of black foam with adhesive on each side of it. So it's like double-sided tape, but it's just got that little bit of squishiness to it. And I feel like it decouples better than like Top Stick. And I've been using Top Stick for years because it's cheap and it's easy. And I still keep that in my kit too. But yeah, it's something about that. The Rycoats is just awesome. Like I think they figured it out, and that's why they can charge so much money for them. They're literally like 50 cents for like a half-inch square of these things. So if you're ever doing like, like one of those long interview days with like 20 people, you're just like, oh man, I just blew like through $10 and, goo.
I have a bunch of Rycoat stuff too, and I constantly am like tearing off the felt, in case I need to use it again later, and then they've got a little furry patch that you can use too. And I was like, well, we didn't use that very long, and I'll peel that back and we'll save that for later because it adds up.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, we bill good money for what we do, so I can't complain, but yeah, when I look at when you look at a bag of these, it comes in the mail, you're like, that's $50. It's like it's like a baggie full of like, little squares. You're like, all right, whatever it takes.
Well, as a family man, you've got kids. How do you handle the work and personal life balance?
Oh my God, I have no idea. That's my question to everybody else. Every time I meet people with kids, I'm like, how do you do it? Yeah, it's a tough balance. My wife is a guidance counselor at a high school, so she's kind of got the more stable, normal hours, and that works. And we also have this really amazing hookup. We're renting the second floor of her father's house, and he's retired. So we get him to just cover any like little transitional things we need with the kids. Like, I got this 6 a.m. call. I can't drive the kids to school. Is there any way you can do it? And he's like, sure. So works out a lot of times. So that helps. And man, it's like I want to get more into like the narrative world. I just joined the union here like a year ago, and I've day played as like utility and boom on second units and stuff like that. And I did a half of a movie last winter for like 3.5 weeks. And I like love the camaraderie of being on a sound department, and it totally appeals to me. And I feel like I'd love to get more into it, but the hours those guys do is insane. I'm just like, I can't imagine doing, 15, 16 hour days, 5 days a week, ruining all your Saturdays as well because of the split shifts and all that fun stuff. But I don't know. I keep telling myself maybe I'll hit a point in my life where like the kids like, don't care if I'm around as much, once they get a little older and like, whatever. And then maybe I can start to like move more into that direction. But then I also think maybe by then I'll just be like this weathered sound guy who's just like, I'm not doing that, I'll just be like over it, I don't know. We'll see. But I'm having fun. I just second boomed on something Monday this week, and yeah, it's cool. I like having other sound people on set. It's nice to, talk shop and see how they do things, and you get to learn every time you work with a new mixer, or a new utility or new boom, you get to learn new tricks and kind of see where they're coming from with it. So I think that's cool.
Well, did you have any mentors along the way that kind of helped you out?
Yeah, well, so let's see. I had, as far as mentors, I had like a buddy of mine, and that's kind of how I got into this. So I feel kind of guilty, especially when I like talk negatively about like the narrative life, because like I remember working with some of these guys on these movies, and I would just be like, this is crazy. Like, how could anyone do this? And they're like, what do you mean? We do this all the time. And I'm like, oh yeah. And then like it hit me. I'm like, yeah, I think I just kind of like started backwards. Like I started in corporate essentially. I had a friend who was doing it. He was working like E&G sound and a little bit of docs, but mostly just like talking head interviews. And at the time I was working, just a brief background, I started in radio for like 10 years. And then while I was doing that, I was, working at nightclubs at night doing front of house and monitors for bands. And then I was starting to dabble in like recording bands. Then I ended up opening a recording studio. And then I did some like corporate AV. So I was kind of just doing a little bit of everything. And so when he told me about the fact, I guess he had hit a point where he was starting to get busy enough to be able to pass jobs along. And he's like, yeah, he's like, would you be interested in like doing this? He's like, I think you could do this, pretty easily. So I did a job, or I went on a job with him. I think I kind of shadowed him once. And I was like, oh yeah, this looks pretty cool. And the money was pretty good. So I was like, cool. So I basically just like transitioned, and I was kind of at a point in my life where it made sense to kind of get out of like the band lifestyle and world, because I was getting older and kids and all that fun stuff. So I just kind of hit a point where I knew it was time. So sold some of my like super cool 1176 compressors from the studio and turned it into like a 633 and a shotgun mic. And from there, I just started getting more and more jobs, and I just kept buying stuff and as I needed it. Yeah, I forget what the question was at this point, but
just the mentors along the way.
Oh, mentors. So yeah, I would say that's a mentor. That's Ben Didsbury. He kind of brought me into this world. I wish I had more mentors. Actually, now that you say it, I feel like I have more like colleagues, like dudes who are kind of like at the same level that I'm at, and we just talk and we trade gigs, and we just touch base, and kind of if I have a question about something, I might run it by these guys and see what they know. But like the mixer I worked with earlier this week, I had this job come up where I knew I was going to be going from boat to boat. And so I just asked him, and he gave me a couple little tips. He just, he said, might want to bring a shark fin. Yeah, he just kind of put me at ease. I was like, am I forgetting anything? And he was like, no, he's like, I think you'll be good as long as you're prepared. So, again, I like to just pick people's brains. But yeah, if anyone wants to mentor me, hit me up.
Tell the listeners about your worst on-set experience.
It's funny because when I listen to your podcast, I always like listen to these people and their worst stories ever. And I always wonder, I'm like, what would I actually say if I was going to say my worst story? I've definitely worked on sets that were just terrible, like just bad shows that were poorly run. There was this one show I worked on. It was like a home, I don't want to say too much about it. It was like a home decorating show or something. And they did not know what they were doing. So it was just like poorly run, poorly scheduled. They'd have the whole crew come in at like 6 a.m. and they'd be like, all right, we got to get footage of these guys ripping these carpets out. So then we like get them ripping the carpets out, and they'd be like, all right, now we got to get footage of them painting the room. And then we'd like be like, okay. And then so they'd paint the room, and then the next thing would be something like, okay, now we have to have them put the new carpets in. We're like, they're going to do this in one day. Like the paint has to dry and stuff, like something like that. Just crazy, like unattainable goals, and which led to like consecutive, like 17-hour days. And the crew was just so toasted. And I remember we were working one night in this living room somewhere, and I don't know, probably just because the crew was so bleary-eyed, someone put a camera on a tripod and it didn't seat right. And I was kind of standing nearby, and so I look over out of the corner of my eye, just see this like C300 just go Titanic, like it just goes belly up, and it basically falls off the back of the plate. There's like Teradek antennas flying all around the room, and just like shattered. And so when it hits the ground, it hits some C-stand, which didn't have a sandbag on it. And at the top of the C-stand, there's like some kind of a Joker 400 or 200, some kind of a smaller Joker, but if anyone knows that light, it's like a hot light. So that light comes down right into my face, and I can like feel it like I kind of threw my shoulder at it so it wouldn't hit me actually in the face, but I could just feel like the heat just almost like singe my eyebrows. And that was like one of those moments where I was like, all right, don't freak out. Like just, like, but it was just the moment where you're like, I need to get out of this house. Like I can't be on this thing anymore. And we made so much money in overtime on that stupid show. But yeah, those are one of those ones where you're just like, is this worth it? Is this what I want to do with my life? You know, like when you find yourself on those gigs, and now that I've been doing this a little longer, I think I know better. I'm like, yeah, no, I probably would have stopped saying yes to that show a little sooner than I did. But yeah, just like bad sets. Like I did this other one that was like, it was some reality show that was terrible, and we were doing VO with this cast member. And he lived in this like disgusting apartment, or no, it was like a house. And his dad lived in there too, and his dad smoked cigarettes. And I don't want to diss smokers, but like it's pretty gross when you smoke in your house. And so it's like me, the producer who's feeding him his lines, and the dad just sitting next to him on the couch, just cranking smokes. And it's like the dead of summer. It's so hot and gnarly. They've got dogs everywhere. The whole place just stinks. It's gross. We were there until like 3 a.m. one night just doing VO because like the kid couldn't string together like hit the 4 words they wanted him to say. He was just having so much trouble with it. And again, not his fault. He's not, not a voiceover actor or anything like that. But yeah, just shows like that. That's like what kills me inside, like slowly. So those might be my worst ones.
Did you ever forget any critical gear when you were on your way to set?
Oh my God, yeah. There was this one shoot, and I'm like pretty crazy about that kind of stuff. Like I've literally just been driving to a job and had to like pull over halfway there and be like, for some reason I just have this intuition that I forgot whatever, my box of, lavaliers or something like that. And I'll jump out, I'll pop the trunk open like on the way there on the highway and dig through all my stuff and be like, oh good, they're there. Okay, great. And then I can like continue to the job. So I'm very vigilant about that. But there was this job where it was a corporate shoot for some like defense contractor out in Arizona. So they flew me and a DP out from Boston. And the first day was a travel / pre-lighting day, I guess. And it was like a corporate sit-down panel, essentially. It was like a fireside chat with like, I think 4 people on mic. So I got all my gear, we get on the plane, we get there. It's a long day of travel. And we go right from the airport to the building we're going to shoot at. And because it's like defense contractor stuff, it's on some like Navy or some like Army base or something like that. And so there's a lot of like tight security just to even just get into like what it seems to me like the town. Like there's gates. It's like almost like a gated community to get into this world. So we get all the way in. We start setting up. They hired like a gaff grip from some local company. They're doing their thing. I'm breaking open my stuff. I'm scanning, getting things set up. They're done with the pre-light at some point. We're like, all right, let's get out of here. Let's go get some dinner. So we go back. Oh, I remember wondering if I should leave my gear because it was like in this really high security facility. I'm like, it's not like it's going to get stolen. And like, they're leaving all their lights. And I think they even left some of the cameras. But I was just like, I don't know. I'm so weird about my gear. It's just like, I never want to leave it anywhere. So it's like, I think I'll take it with me. So I took it with me. Next morning, we wake up, we check out of the hotel because we're going to do this shoot and then immediately jump on a plane and come back. And we get all the way in there and I just look at like they had a cart set up for me the day before where I was set up. And I look at the cart and I'm like, so I thought I put my sound bag down here and it's not there. And I'm like, oh, maybe I put it down over here by my coat. It's not there. And then I just had that like panic moment just come over me where I was like, it's still in the hotel room next to the bed. Like I could envision myself putting it there the night before. And I think I purposely almost like hid it on myself because I'm such a psycho that like, even when I leave stuff in my hotel room, I still kind of like hide it a little bit. I don't know if you do that, but like if I'm just going out for dinner and I'm coming back, I'll like put my laptop like under the mattress. Like I'm just like weird like that. So I kind of hid it on myself. And so I just had this horrible feeling. And luckily I knew we had like, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours before we had to shoot. So I'm like, there's time to go get it. But the hotel was like 30 minutes away. And now it's rush hour on a weekday morning. And I'm like, so I go to the DP and I kind of whisper because I don't want to make a big scene. I'm like, hey, bad news. Apparently I left my bag in the hotel. He's like, really? And I'm also freaking out because I get so weird about my gear. Like, I like called the hotel. I'm like having these like, I'm visualizing like the cleaning staff, like putting it on eBay, like as I'm standing there. So I call the hotel and I'm like, you need to run into that room right now and go find that bag and tell me that you have it in your hand, and I'm gonna like hurry back there. So they held it for me. And then the worst part of this is I feel like terrible now because I screwed up, and I drive back to the hotel, and then I forgot that when I come back, I have to go through all these like army checkpoints and stuff, and I don't know if I have like the right credentials to get back in. And like, because it's some weird army base, it's like not even on the map on a GPS. Like, it's just like area 51 or something. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. So it was like, I was like totally sweating bullets, but it all worked out, of course. And like, but that was like the moment where I was like, okay, I need to like have a little bit more of like, I don't know, some kind of protocol where that never happens again. So I never hide bags on myself anymore. That's what I learned out of that one. Yeah, there was another one where I was doing a voiceover session for some reality show, and the talent on these reality shows, they never want to do what they hate the show. It's so weird. Like, I don't know if you ever do reality, but I try not to do reality anymore. It's just brutal. But usually like the talent hates the show at some point because they're being, exploited and whatever. So in order to get this girl to come do her VO, they don't have anywhere to do it, and they want to do it remotely, like via Skype. Like, the producer just wants to Skype in and have her say a handful of lines. So I rented a real small soundstage from a friend of mine. So they hired a local PA to like literally go get this girl and put her in the car and make sure she showed up for her VO session. So she shows up. I've built like a little blanket tent out of some C-stands and stuff, sound blankets. And the producer calls in on the Skype on like the PA's laptop, I guess. We're all set up and ready to hit record. He says something like, all right, let's do the VO first. And then in my mind, I'm like, the VO first? Like, are we only doing VO? What? And then another moment of panic came over me where I was like, oh my God, a week ago, they sent me a camcorder in the mail, like FedExed it to me and asked me to bring it to the shoot because they wanted to shoot some of like these reality TV, like video diaries or whatever. And so I had that moment of like, oh no, it's sitting on my dining room table right now. So luckily my father-in-law was home that day. So I just texted him like behind the scenes, and I was hoping that like the VO would take long enough to cover the trip. I thought about sending the PA to go get it, but it would have taken her double the time, obviously, to go there and come back. So it was just quicker. And he happened to be around, and he was more than willing to do it for me. So it was huge. So they never knew that happened, which was what I was hoping. But it literally timed out perfectly. Like, he texted me, I'm in the parking lot. I'm like, whispered to the PA, I'm like, go in the parking lot. There's a guy with the thing, get it. And she's like, okay. And then like within 2 minutes, they were like, all right, let's move on to this camcorder stuff. I'm like, oh, perfect. So it all worked out. But yeah, that's gives you a heart attack.
Oh, that's a nice one. All right. Well, if you could go back and do it all over again, what would you do differently?
Well, I think I kind of hinted on this a little bit earlier, but I can't help but like wish that I had found this world, this avenue of sound, because I've been doing sound for 20 years, but I've really only been doing location recording, sound mixing for, I don't know, probably just under 5 years at this point. So I'm still fairly new to this game. I really like the narrative world, and I would like to do more of that kind of stuff. But again, the lifestyle stuff's kind of getting in the way of like family life. So if I could do it all again, I'd say try to find this world sooner, so I would have been younger. And maybe when I was 25, I'd be willing to do the like no budget tier zeros and all that fun stuff. But right now, things are too good otherwise, so I can't do it. It's like I joked with someone the other day. I'm like, the problem is I just don't have the time to pay my dues. Like, as far as, doing the low budget, terrible movies that nobody wants to do. But if I was 25, yeah, I would be all over those, So I guess if I could do it all again, that's probably the only thing I would change. But I love what I do. Like, I really genuinely like this line of work, and I feel like I, a lot of days have a dream job, and yeah, I wouldn't change too much.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I have 2 girls, and yeah, you make some career sacrifices to some degree, but you still get to enjoy this career, this industry. So it's finding that balance, right?
Yeah. And that is what I like about what I do, because I am freelance, and so every day could be something different, and it usually is. And there's those boring days where you're sitting around doing an interview or whatever, but I like those days too, especially if you do like this week, for example. Like Monday I boomed on a movie. Tuesday I worked with This Old House, which is a pretty cool gig. It's mostly just like lavaliers on that show. And then today I was like doing some, we were out on the ocean doing some boat to boat type stuff. And yeah, tomorrow is like a corporate interview. So it's like a little bit of everything. It's keeps it like just enough variety where it doesn't get too stale,
Exactly. No, I agree. And it's much better than sitting behind a desk for 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
Well, if some of our listeners wanted to get started in production sound, what kind of tips or advice would you give them?
Yeah, this is another one where I wonder, because like I said, I feel like I kind of got into this backwards. So for a young person, I would say do whatever you can. Like, get your hands on anything you can get. Like, try everything out too. Like, maybe you won't like booming, but you'll like sound mixing, and and I find those positions to be so different too. Like, when I do day play as a boom op, sometimes it really like reinforces my respect for boom operators. I'm like, man, this is such a crazy role. Like, because it's not just the physical swinging of a pole. You got to be like, you have to know what everybody's doing on set. It's really amazing, like how in tune you have to be at least be a good boom op. But yeah, I would say just get your hands on whatever you can do. Do those low budget, no budget, whatever, passion projects. And I think pretty quickly after doing a couple of those, you're going to know if you want to continue doing this. And then it's just a matter of just like sticking with it and try to meet people in your area who do it. Even if they're like the old guys or whatever, just reach out and let them know who you are. And like, I've had some younger people hit me up who are just starting out. I ended up hiring them as like an A2 for, some random job, and it worked out great. So, as far as gear goes, it definitely helps to have gear to work in this kind of world, just because for some reason sound mixers tend to have their own stuff, whereas the other departments can often rent camera, etc. Yeah, just start small. I mean, like, a lot of the gear out now is like so inexpensive compared to what it used to be, and there's a lot of like budget-friendly kind of prosumer options out there that you can go make a movie with if you wanted to. So.
Well, this has been good, Jim. I appreciate you taking the time today. And as we kind of start to wrap things up, what's the best way for people to find you online?
People can find me online, Instagram. It's just my name, Jim Keaney. And the name of my company is Hub Location Sound. So if you go to hublocationsound.com, that's my website. And I got an email contact form on there if anyone wants to hit me up. And otherwise, I guess I would push people at the YouTube channel that I have going on, because I am working on a new video right now that I shot like a month ago, but I just haven't had time to edit it. But it's close. It's getting close. And it's basically like a tour of my my cart setup. The company's called Sound Cart, and they make these like upright kind of modular 80/20 carts. And so I'm going to run through that, because that's something I've been working on and showing pictures of on Instagram, and people have been asking me questions about it. So that's my latest project, creativity-wise. So yeah, that's about it. Thanks for having me on the show, man. This is great.
Awesome. Nice. All right. I want to say thanks to Jim Keaney for being on the show today.
Thanks, Michael.
And a big thanks to all of our listeners out there. If you'd like us to discuss a particular topic, please send us an email at locationsoundpodcast@gmail.com. We would love for you to subscribe and leave us a comment. We're available on Apple Podcasts, and for Android users, check out Google Podcasts. Also, we're on Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, and on your favorite podcast app. Until next time, remember, sound is half the picture.